What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to an episode of the Agent to CEO podcast. And I'm really excited to dive in with today's guest. As I see this guy every day. Nick, how long have I been seeing you every day for? What's our text group? How many years have we been staying accountable to at least to our fitness?
I can find it, but I think it's over 10. I think it's like 12 or 13 years. It's a lot.
It's wild. I joke, and I bring you up in a lot of different contexts and conversations, and I'm like, oh yeah, I see Nick every day. What are you talking about?
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna look in my phone here while we're talking, because I remember one time, it was because it's when Jay and Mike were on there too. Because they started this ridiculousness, when it was sort of funny how they did it. But I remember I was doing a film at High Point, North Carolina with Nito Cobain. And I remember I was doing my workout in the mall parking lot while I was there. And I remember sending a video, and somehow I would always delete those videos, but somehow I didn't delete this one. And every now and then it reminds me, oh, yeah, here it is. So it's been at least since 2013, because I have a video here from Tuesday. I'm much younger. October 13th of 2013, October 8th of 2013. And so it's been, so 12 years that, honestly, man, there's many times I wonder if that group, the group has morphed a lot over there. You and I are the only two constants.
Yeah.
And you're the only reason I really do it. And I know I should be doing it, and you should be doing it too. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to, I used to worry, I silently kicked a guy out before, who you probably know, who just was whining all the time or would bring up all this random stuff. I just removed him from the group. But, and we got a small group right now, but it's great, man. It does, we could talk a lot about that. I've learned a lot about myself and a lot about health through that journey, because I remember at the beginning, it was Jay, no days off. I'm like, is that good? Is no days off good? I don't think that's good. But you start to learn. And recently, I think I shared in the group, I started just putting my Whoop band stats and my run stats in ChatGPT and asking questions. And oh, it turns out I was destroying my organs by running 5-mile fasted runs every day without any regard to my recovery, any regard to my, whatever, right? And my nutrition. And now it's having a one-on-one fitness coach. It doesn't know everything, and it doesn't replace a real human, all that stuff. But for somebody who really doesn't know that much about nutrition, recovery, all that stuff, it's getting me way healthier. And which, one thing that I think we all, to transition to business, it's like anything else in life. We start out on a path, and most of us who've had success are we can charge hard. And, I've been charging hard for 15 years now without any regard, thinking it's healthy, without any regard to what it's actually doing to my body and my blood work and everything else. And it's oh, wait a minute, I should be smarter than this by now. And so it's been a great journey. I certainly appreciate your consistency on there too, but it's been fun.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Literally the reason I will post is because of you. And I think that's just the power of accountability. And I was talking to one of the teams this morning, and they've kind of broken into pods and kind of, I don't want to say leadership by committee, but it's kind of what it is right now, right? Just production, and just not really able to really truly sit back and really run as a one person only sales manager, sales leader. So it's kind of a divide and conquer. And the simplicity of not even I don't even know why, right? The power of peer-to-peer accountability, get just an accountability partner. And I remember Vern, when we were working with Vern Harnish, I remember Vern sharing that. He's like, listen, he goes, guys, one of my secrets is that I've had a one-to-one, accountability person in my life for the last, 20 years, and it changes, but I always have somebody. And whatever it is that I'm serious and I'm committed to improve, whatever that one metric is, there's that accountability, and I'll do it just because I don't want to let them down, right? They're I don't want to, and sometimes I don't want them to one up me, but it's also man, I want them to know that I'm still here with them, right? In pushing.
Committed.
And so
yes.
I'm committed. That's it. That's the word. And so I think finding those, it's really, really powerful. And those little things that we do that we don't recognize the ripple effect and the importance of it. And it's just like you said, 12 years, I've probably been in there for at least 10 to 11 of those of
Oh
that
yeah.
time. And it's the ebbs and flows, and there's days that I don't want to get up and get after it, and I'm like, man, like I got to, right? And I think that's super important to be able to have that for whatever we're navigating, and especially I think going through times of change. And I think that's one of the things that you and I can kind of get into is like where your career has taken you into the path of kind of where you're at. And one of the beautiful things, the skill set that you possess, and I have one other client that I say this all the time about her. I'm like, she's a storyteller that just happens to sell real estate. And everything she does, she is the best storyteller that I've ever seen and then putting it into video to sell houses. It's just remarkable that she pulls a story out of these houses. And, every time I'm talking to her about storytelling, I think about you and really you've just honed this storytelling ability in a way that is so remarkable, and the doors that's unlocked and the path that you're on right now. And Nick, maybe back up a little bit and let's kind of tell the beginning and where kind of our paths crossed, and kind of how you've navigated just a fascinating career to this point, and kind of where you're at. And I'm super excited, all the work that you've been doing and kind of where you're going. But maybe let's back up a little bit and kind of, start from that beginning about 12 years ago.
Yeah, so I look, I've been a musician my whole life, songwriter now, way more than half of it. I'm currently in the top 5% of songwriters in the world, which is almost enough to buy dinner with the royalties. But it's fun. I love getting to do it still, and I love doing it. But I met my mentor, my business partner, Jack, who's retired now. But he was really great at marketing, and he was a great mentor. We had a lot of the same belief systems, and I knew him through his daughter, and so I found like my person, like young, I met him when I was 16, and then we went into business together when I was, I think, 21, when I was just in law school, and so I just had the blessing of like maybe. Every sword cuts both ways. So I could say I sometimes probably felt like I had like a safety net, maybe a little too much. But so like I'd ask him about like everything and take his advice rather than some things. Like I've realized recently as a director, people have always said like, oh, a director's got to have a point of view. And I'm like, I don't do politics. I don't understand what you mean. And then recently I was working on something, and I told my team about it a couple of times. Like I had this idea, and like I knew it was a pretty good idea. And I told them like, oh, that's cool, whatever. And then finally, like I sat down one day and like did the work to like develop it into a story to tell them. And then on the next call, I told them, they're like, wait, why didn't we start on that like 2 years ago? I'm like, okay. So I realized foolishly, I finally realized like my job as a director, and most of the people here as a CEO, as a visionary, as an agent, whatever they are, your job is to see something that other people around you cannot see, and then share it with them. But you cannot be upset when they don't see it with you at first. You have to do whatever your magic is, whether you you need to stage it, or I mean, you can do a lot of that virtually now and other things like that. But like you've been given a vision. I believe it's from above. I've been given a vision by God, and it's not his job. It is my job to make them see the vision he gave me. And most people, when it's a vision that's outside of their comfort zone for you, are going to take a dump on that vision. Right. So like Jack was great. And we built this, the celebrity branding agency together. I just sort of sunset it December of 2025, which was really nerve wracking because it did millions and millions a year. I had a lot of costs too, and there's reasons I shut it, but I just finally was like, you know what? I was really passionate about the people in that business at all times. Got to work with, you and Jay and Mike. A ton of, probably hundreds of amazing real estate professionals I still call friends. Not all hundreds of them, but several of them I do. And I got to work with, the Jack Canfields of the world, and the Brian Tracy's, and then the Chris Vosses, and the Lisa Nichols, and the Tony Robbins. And it was like, oh, this is cool. Like it was symbiotic. It was really cool. But I was never really passionate about, book publishing, or like a lot of the things we did as like a tool. Yeah. I was passionate about the people always. And then, so we started building that business. And I guess I wanted to be a songwriter, and I went to law school and I'm glad I did, but I never wanted to practice law, and I really haven't for the most part, but I knew my parents encouraged it. We're immigrants. It was a good idea. And I'm encouraging my kids to do it now. They're getting college age. One's in college and one's, and I'm like, hey, it's not a bad idea. If you don't know what you're gonna do with your life, this is a great way to spend a couple of years that you'll never regret. So, I came out and started building this business with Jack. And then I did what any creative person does, or what any person does when you start making some money. You revert back to what you really wanted to do. Right. Mm-hmm. So another business lesson here. I don't know. Do you use the Colby assessment at all?
I've used the Colby. I've leaned more into, the Working Genius has been the one kind of my default over the last couple of years.
So I haven't done much with it, with Working Genius. I know what it is. Haven't done much, but the thing, it will work across all of these platforms. But basically, I remember Lindsay, my business partner's daughter, used to run our business, and I would want to hire somebody, and then she'd do a Colby on him, and she'd be like, I don't think that person's going to work for that role. I'm like, and I would be like, I wouldn't say it rudely, but basically like, I know you're wrong and I know I'm right because I can read people. And what I learned over time was she and Colby were both right. However, people who are ambitious and need to make money and are smart can do anything they need to do long enough to pass the tests and make the money. Yeah. Once they make the money and get comfortable, they revert back to who they really are. And so that's what I did. So the moment I started making money, I'm like, I wonder what else. So I literally remember, I think I was on the way back from my second Grammys, maybe. I went to 10 Grammys, 9 in a row with one in between the first and the second one. And I remember I was coming back, and I knew from the business world and the other things I'd done that awards can like give you credibility, and like you need credibility. You need to get in the conversation. You and your work needs to speak for itself to win the deal, but you got to get you got to get a seat at the table, and awards can help a lot. And I was like, man, I'm no closer to winning a Grammy on this one. Yet another audience spectator who, was invited, but no, my name wasn't called once, and I wasn't nominated for nothing. And and so I'm like, I wonder what other awards I could win. Like there's there's the EGOT, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, so I said, an Oscar, that sounds hard. Tony, no Broadway. I wonder if I can win an Emmy. And so I Googled how to win an Emmy. And, long story short, I followed the directions and I won my first Emmy. But, there's a lot to that of, first of all, looking for help, knowing that you're not inventing the system, realizing that systems are meant to be worked. You don't just come in from the outside and ignore the rules and win. You learn how the rules work and you win. You can break some of the rules. Not for entry, but you can break some of the classical rules in any business, but you need to know those rules typically before So there's a lot we could talk about that. But then, I was, I made my first doc, got 2 Emmy nominations and won my first Emmy. I was like, and my business partner, Jack, he's like, hey, you should do more of that. And so I started doing did a couple more films the next year and said, and eventually I had the agency crank into where, it was sort of my security blanket and my safety net. And I helped enough people with their branding and other things. They were willing to help me make films and other things like that. So it got to that point, and then, the business was doing well. It ebbs and flows like every business. Unfortunately, I wish they just did this, but then we'd probably all be drug addicts and alcoholics because we'd have nothing to do but just, keep chasing dopamine. So, the ups and downs I think are healthy. I'm trying to learn that, but we don't like them. And then, sort of the middle of last year, my EOS coach, we were talking and we had lunch. He's like, man, it just really feels like every time you come into our quarterly offsite, it's like you're telling me about interviews with these people. And it's like, you're so excited about it. And then we spend the day talking about the agency. And it's like, you do the work, but I could just being honest. Like I see you, like the energy is not the same. I'm like, well, yeah, but and then he looks at me, and there was somebody, I just interviewed Keith Richards for a project from the Rolling Stones, like a couple weeks earlier. And he's like, he starts talking to me like, what would it look like? Like he goes, if you woke up tomorrow and you could do whatever you wanted, like, what would you do? And I was like, well, I'd do this, I do that. And he's like, all right, well, let me just point this out. You didn't say the agency one time in there. So let me just call your attention to that. He goes, so what would it look like if you just do that? And then I started like making all these practical excuses. He's like, well, let me ask you one question. He's like, is the guy who interviewed Keith Richards a couple weeks ago, like one of the most famous musicians in all of the world, is that like a different guy than the guy who's like here, right? Like right now? I'm like, no. He's like, well, then what are you worried about? I'm like, and then I opened up actually, like I opened up, I read a devotional mostly every day. I try to get it called Jesus Calling, and whatever. Like, first of all, if I believed that I was in charge of all of this, I'd have way more nervous breakdowns. I'm at 0 so far, but I've been close. But my faith is big to me, and I'm not going to make this about that, but I think having faith in something more than yourself is really important. All right. And so basically Jesus Calling is basically someone is writing in the voice of Jesus speaking to you, but then they back it up with scripture. So it's like, it's a person who wrote it, but like, it's as if Jesus were talking to you, what they think Jesus might say, but it's all backed by scripture. And it's like, basically it said something to the effect of, stop clinging to safety, which I never thought I clung to safety ever in my life, but like, stop clinging to safety and pay attention to where I'm leading you, and trust me, not anything you like, not just experience, like, trust me. I'm like, basically there's nothing. I was like, okay, I surrender. Like, okay, you're right. John is in my US consultant. I'm like, I'm wrong. This is what I need to do. And like, we started talking about it and like what it would look like. And my COO, my integrator, is a guy named Guy. He's a great human, and he and I are very different, which is why it works. Mm-hmm. Right? If they're the same, it wouldn't work at all. And to his credit, I was like, how do I tell him this? And like, I call him, and to his credit, he's like, great. It sounds like the decision has been made. So great. Congratulations. Now, let's work on how that's going to actually happen and not torpedo life. Because I'm a 10 quick start on Colby. I like, once I make a decision, if we decide right now we're going to jump off the Empire State Building, like I'm booking the flight while we're talking. And if you don't,
it's already booked.
I'd be pissed because we agreed, like we decided we were doing this, which is a blessing and a curse, like everything else. But so we've since that time, middle of last year, we already had some things on the books to sell. And he's like, we probably should sell those and take the revenue. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And so we did that. But in the meantime, working towards this new realm of, it's what I've been spending most of my time on, but now I have focus. I can have some focus. And the coolest part about it is we used to I have a producer named Katie, and me and Katie used to do all the film stuff together, and she's part of my leadership team. But then we'd have our leadership team. And when we get together for leadership team, we'd spend 90% of the day on the agency, because it was like the bigger breadwinner. And like on the breaks and stuff, me and Katie would share what we're doing in films, and we get back to the agency work. And then the first offsite we had that was like, okay, we're winding that down. We spent like 20% of the time on like the wind down and 80% of the time on the new business. And like, oh my God, getting the smartest people who I know, that's why they're on the leadership team, like rowing with me and Katie on this film. I was like, oh my God, this could actually work, And so it's just a lesson in focus and faith and trust. And, started the year, like it's almost like January 1st. I'm like, I guess I'm a full-time filmmaker and songwriter now. Like that sounds like a one-way ticket to homelessness, but let's do this. So it's been like, and it's been calculated because we're not idiots, but it has been like a really big, like surrender moment. Like, if this is, I guess, let's see how this is going to work. However, I have enough experience doing it, have enough of a track record, and I trust the people around me enough to help me avoid the pitfalls I would have hit on my own being a 10 quick start. But also Naveen Jain. Do you know Naveen at all?
No.
Naveen is a billionaire, incredible guy. We could talk about him all day, but he's an Indian guy and his accent is great. All when he says it sounds way better. But he's like, he told me one time, he said, I tell all my children I love them, but I will not always be proud of you. I'm like, ooh, okay. Like, he's like very direct and honest. I'm like, that makes sense. Like, you always love them, but they could make some decisions that would make you not proud of them. So like, okay, I like that. Number two, he's like, he goes, I tell my kids, there's so many things that are out of your control. So you have two choices. You can wait for the next disaster, or you can wait for the next miracle. I choose to wait for the next miracle. It's a lot more fun. I'm like, okay, I like this. So because the outcomes in so many things in our life are not up to us. Like we try to pretend they are, but like this, I don't have much of now we need to always respond as to, with, and act as if we are responsible, because it allows us to take control of the situation. But, you really can't control if the person on the other side of the two yellow lines crosses over and paralyzes you, or if someone didn't put the screw in the ceiling and I didn't know and the roof falls in it. Like there's a million and one examples, right? So we just have to admit that we're not in charge of everything. We need to act as if we're in control, and like allow amazing things to happen that we couldn't orchestrate ourselves. And so that's sort of where a long answer to your short question. That's sort of where I'm at right now, which is vulnerable, fascinating, addicting. And I mean, I got the best projects in my life working with the most amazing people in the world. Not all of I can talk about right now, but it's, I want to encourage everybody that I guess if the journey ever starts to feel stale, you're probably not doing it right. I mean, we all want some level of stability, but I think we could all admit now there is no number. Like everyone thinks it's, when I hit this number. Well, by the time you hit that number, unless you win the lotto, which is statistically proven to ruin your life, so don't do that. You've prepared to hit the number, and you've gained the skill set and the wisdom and the network to hit the number. I don't know many people who, when they figure something out, say, I don't want to do that anymore. I think most of them are like, oh, how could I make the world better? How could I grow more? You gave me $1 billion? Oh, I'll be fine for a little bit. I'm going to buy a house and buy a car. Name the number, doesn't matter. And then eventually, I'm going to invest in my friends' businesses. I'm going to donate this money to charity. And eventually, like Richard Branson told me, you know what, Nick, foolishly I passed on that deal because at Virgin, we're always strapped for cash and doing too many things. And I'm so dumb. It took me like a year to realize, wait a minute, Richard Branson is in the same boat as me? Oh, wait a minute. So that boat never ends. You just are invited on that ride and you never get to get off. So you might as well enjoy it. So that's sort of this crazy place I'm at right now, but I'm trying to remind myself to enjoy every bit of it.
Yeah, I love that. And as you were saying that about Branson, had a mentor. High school mentor of ours. We did a lot of work for him. He's just an old, home builder, but he said, boys, listen, nothing changes but the zeros. And that's always really resonated with me. Is like, it doesn't like, the guy that's, struggling to put a couple $100 together, the same guy that's, trying to strap a couple million together. I mean, they got the same, they're going through the same things. It's just zeros. That's really what it is.
Yes. Yep. And the amount of zeros, I'm not a massive student of Gary Vee. I think he's very smart, but he's just not my style. Right. So, but no, I'm not saying anything bad about the guy, just not like, so I'm not like a convert, but he did say something. He said a lot of things that are smart, but one thing that I never forgot was like, you get rewarded in business and life to the degree of which you're willing to take the pain. Right. And so it's like, it's a pain reward ratio. And when it's more zeros, hopefully by then you have earned the ability to take that pain and pressure that comes with that many zeros. Yeah. If not, I mean, I never thought about this either. And again, you'll see how dumb I am by the way I talk, but, like I was like, man, how cool would it be to be like, have a family businesses like in the billions, where like, and like you could like do the work and like you would get to take that over. And then I was like, one day I was like, oh man, imagine the pressure of like, what if I'm the 7th generation and I tank this thing? And what if it's not even my fault? What if it's just like the world stops using film and I own Kodak or my family, like, and I'm the guy who's in charge when the digital camera revolution happens and I miss it or don't get invited or patent. Like, I mean, oh my God, the pressure must be unbelievable. It's just a different type of pressure. But so like, there is no panacea in all this stuff. And I guess there's reasons why many people have written books on it, but like, or it's like thousands of year old truths, like learning to enjoy life in the midst of anything is like, I guess that's the secret to life, the secret to happiness. Like, how do and for me, I choose, my faith is the only way I can get through it because I realize that like, I'm not in control. And so I think that the more we can just acknowledge that, the more we can prepare for the bigger stage, as well as, at the bigger stage has the bigger embarrassments, right? The bigger the numbers, the bigger the swings, the bigger the losses, you can't take them separately. I remember years ago, I mentioned something to my business partner, Jack, and he was like, oh, you wish you could trade places with them is basically what he said. I'm like, man, he's like, all right, well, what about that? I'm like, no. He's like, whoa. And I said like, no to like 3. He's like, well, you can't just have what you want. You got to have it all. I'm like, he's like, it comes together. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Good. Okay. Good lesson. I'm done with that game. But it's, we forget that part, right?
You've been really like running hard with your side hustle for a while, right? And I mean, really, if you think about it, it's kind of as knowing you and kind of your story, and then listening to you kind of recap, kind of, just condensed into this incredible journey you've been on. But it really feels like that, right? Like your passion has been your side hustle for quite some time. And you had the ability to like continue to just really sharpen that skill set of yours, and just being able to see you light up in a way, working and being able to be on different projects, but seeing your energy level with certain projects. And then like when we were in Dallas went into Beck's studio and got to tour through there, just your energy in the interview process versus sitting in and talking about this advertising book campaign thing that we're going to do. Like, I mean, I could even see that in you, and everything you're kind of talking about and learning. Obviously everything happens for a reason, yet do you see to where you could have maybe transitioned into the passion a little bit sooner, or is everything timed the way it's supposed to time?
Yeah, well, so the easy answer, and I think it is right, but it's let's walk through it. Is timing is everything. Are there other times when I maybe could have done it? Maybe, but I don't. A big part of it was me being willing and having the confidence to let go of some of the other things that in the end I actually weren't serving me, but they were in their own way, but not in the way I needed them to. And so probably, and I think it gets harder and harder. Like whenever I speak at universities or to young people or just whatever, I'm always like, hey, whatever you really want to do, even if you got to make money, if you like, start doing it now, because it just gets harder and harder the more you have more obligations. I mean, I've got mortgages and family and kid in college and kids in private school and sports and dance. Dance is the most expensive sport ever, I guess, except for like horse stuff, which we're not doing that.
That's expensive.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. And so, your obligations get heavy. Right. And so it's like, and then it's not just like, I would love to chase my dreams to be an artist, like, my whole life. But like, there comes a point where like, for a while, that probably would have been selfish. Like I needed to make sure that I put my kids in the best position to succeed. And like, as I mean, it's not always about you. Right. And so you have to be willing to, it's a lot about you, because you have to live with you every second of every day, but you do have to find a way to make sure that you're serving others well around you, or they're all, we've all seen what happens basically. Right. And so for me, running hard on the side hustle, like I think we've talked about before, but like for the past probably 15 years, once things actually started working, my oldest is 20 right now, my middle is 18, and my youngest is 14. And my wife, like about 15 years ago, was like, hey, I love that you're having success, and I'm so thankful I can stay home with the kids, because that's what we always wanted. But like, we didn't sign up to do this alone, and like the kids and I need you. And so it was a great call out on her part, instead of like getting angry about it and never telling me about it and just driving us further apart. We've been married 24 years this year, so she is a saint. But she basically, we sat down and like, well, okay. She's like, I know you got to travel, like, so let's decide together like what's reasonable. And so we decided 7 nights a month. And if I missed dinner at the time, because we do family dinner every night, because that was before all the practices and all the things. Yeah. And I was like, that was a half a night, because that's like an important part of the day. And so, have there been times I had to go over 7 nights? Absolutely. Like tomorrow, I'm going to Louisville, Kentucky for our bourbon business. I was going to leave early Thursday morning, but then I have to fly back early Friday morning for a speaking gig. So it'd be like 2, 4 a.m. mornings, and I can do it. I've done it before. I can absolutely do it. But I was like, hey, and my son has his district playoff game tonight. So I didn't schedule it tightly, because I knew that I could, but I'm like, hey, it's tonight. You don't have a game the rest of the week. It would be 8 nights. Would you be okay if I went tomorrow, like at a reasonable time, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, instead of 2, 4 a.m. morning? She's like, yeah, I totally get it. All good. But we had the guardrail and the framework to make sure that there was a language to speak around, rather than like, I imagine a pastor is the hardest job in the world because you can do anything you want justified that it's for Jesus, right? Like, oh, I got to go to the hospital at 10 o'clock. And really, you might just not want to change diapers anymore or what, I don't know, whatever, right? But like we had a conversation going about it to where it's like, the coolest part about that, by the way, is like, if I thought one of the most productive things for me to do was to go fly to Alaska and fish for 2 days with some friends and business associates, she didn't question it at all. I mean, if I wasn't able to pay the bill, she'd question that. But just like, she's like, hey, if that's how you want to use 2 of your nights, good with me. As long as you're not doing something that's like embarrassing to the family,
Sure,
cheating on, doing something, whatever, something bad. Like, you want to go golf? I don't go, do it. And so that was really freeing too. It's like, oh, I don't. As long as I'm working within the guardrails, I don't have to ask permission for anything. And so I, have some basic rules of I don't miss the first day of school. I don't miss the last day of school. I don't miss birthdays. I don't, and those, whatever those priorities are going to be are shifting as my kids get older. But there's some non-negotiables. And I think that's just really important. But it took her bringing that up to me, because for me, I was just trying to find success. That's all I ever wanted to find my whole life. So I needed her to be like, hey, we're going to have some success, but this is what success is with a family. And I wanted that success. It was just not on my radar of what I was thinking about. I was just like, how do I pay the mortgage? How to pay the mortgage? How to put money in the bank? All the things we've all been there. Right. And we'll all be there again. That's how it works.
Yeah, it does. And, no, I love that. It's establishing it's the agreements versus expectation concept, right? And if you didn't have that agreement, those guardrails, then you would just be operating under an expectation. And we know when you operate under an expectation, you're going to be let down, and you're going to let down 100% of the time. It's just because we haven't got on the same page of what's the intent, what's the outcome, what are we trying to create, what's the goal, and everybody get on the same page. So that's so good to be able to establish those agreements. And it's like, listen, now if you were like abusing it or like you said, not being, the intent of why you're away, then yeah, that changes the agreement. But that is so good. Nick, as kind of looking through, man, a couple questions. I know I want to kind of a couple takeaways, but carving out that skill set that you've developed in the storytelling side of things, you're just an incredible behind the camera, being able to capture the story, pulling out of people. I mean, that's why you have the opportunities you have. I mean, you are so good at that. Where did that, developing of that skill to really be able to connect and have conversations and pull things out of people, where did that come from? Where did you develop being able to pull from people to be able to craft the story?
Yeah. So, I appreciate all the kind words. I'll take them as intended, and then I'll give you some answers that probably, indicate some of where my imposter syndrome still lies too. Cause I think if we don't have any of that, we're not trying hard enough. Right. Yeah. But I'll own it. So a couple things, like one of my gifts, cause we all have them. Right. And we don't, by the way, we usually don't value them at all because we didn't earn them, that we were given them. Right. And so like Shaq doesn't think dunking a basketball is probably really cool. He just woke up and was like, what do you mean? That's not cool. I just could do that. Right. And so part of the time, I think we need to honor the gifts we've been given because we've been given them for a reason. Right. And I'm working on a new book right now called Creativity Protects You. It's sort of my first solo, just me book. And, I'm working with a great ghostwriter because I believe you should stay in your lane. But, it's coming out well. And really, to me, creativity is using the gifts you were given to solve problems in a way no one else on earth could likely solve it because they don't have the same experience and skill sets and gifts you've been given. Right. And so for me, I think number one, I thought I hated learning because I thought learning was 8 hours in a desk all day, which drives me crazy. But I've learned that like I am incredibly curious and I love learning. I love learning from Richard Branson at the spaceport, or like the best in the world, whoever that is. Right. Or just engaging teachers, because we've all had many teachers who are not. And so when someone's really passionate about something and can help you understand it, it usually is pretty easy to get excited about it too. And so my interviews have always just been me being interested in trying to be helpful to that person, for lack of a better term. And sometimes I used to think being helpful was not ever talking about anything negative, because that's hard. Sometimes being helpful is like letting them express what their thoughts are on the negative stereotype or the negative article about them, where oftentimes it is actually. And so, from a practical standpoint, I really do one thing. I try to do one thing, and really, it's a Dan Sullivan concept, unique ability, the one thing you should be doing and really nothing else. And mine is, I endeavor to have meaningful conversations that lead to produced outcomes. And that's what I try to do. And so really just having meaningful conversations is something we always did at home with my parents and my brother. And I just have always tried to do that. Like, I'm not interested in shallow conversation. Like, when I sit down on the airplane, I put on a mask and go to sleep. Not that I haven't had meaningful conversations before, but like, number one, I want to catch up with my sleep. And number two, I'm just not interested in shallow conversations. So, but I love meaningful conversations. So really my job is to have the meaningful conversations. And honestly, the rest of my team does sort of everything else. And so like, people always like, you're such a great storyteller. I'm like, I don't know that I am. Like, I deliver a block of marble to my editor and say, hey, David's in there somewhere, find it. But like, I did my job, which was trying to get the most interesting stories, trying to delve in, trying to get people to be vulnerable, trying to connect with them. I mean, when they cry, I cry, just generally because I'm there to serve. I'm there. It's not, the movie's not about me, and it's not about me being, it's about like, hey, I approach everything from like, hey, how can I serve you where you're at? Whatever that is. And by the way, I just spent multiple days under bridges in Dallas with homeless people the last couple of years. And you learn a lot of what your stereotypes are wrong and how you can serve and all these things. It's been, I'll take you. You'll love it. It's fascinating. It's
yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's really just like, how can I serve? And so that leads to good conversations. And when you serve people well, and you honor the relationship, even if it's not, I don't put, Dickie V got mad at me about a couple of things I didn't put in the movie in the documentary about him. And ultimately it's like, his kids are like, hey, Dad, nobody cares. Like, I know you're stuck on that thing that's like a loop in your head that you feel like wasn't good enough, you didn't handle it right, but like, you did the best you could at the time. And no one in the world now is wondering what happened there. Like, they don't even know the story exists. So for me, I just try to honor the story and have the best conversations I can. I think instructively, this is interesting. I don't know if we've talked about this or not before, but like, I'm pretty good at winging conversations. Like, well, that's what we're doing right now, right? Like, I have enough life experience. Like, I could add context to about anything we want to talk about, other than probably some crazy physics or math or whatever. But so in my first documentaries, I was like, oh, I'm just going to show up and do what I do. And like, we made some good stuff. And I'm like, probably having some preparation and like knowing more about what I know about this person, like probably wouldn't not serve me. Like, probably would serve me pretty well, but I don't like to prepare. Like, it's not me. So I was like, so then I started having someone create outlines and interview questions and stuff. And then, so I went from not being prepared at all or just winging it to like, all of a sudden then I'm like, oh, this is good. And then I started trying to unintentionally basically force people to say what was on the paper. I was like, oh, this is good. This will work. Like, oh, here's the outline. I got to get them to say all these things. So and then I was like, oh, that's not it either. And I finally realized like outsourcing the preparation was great, because I don't want to do it, but someone has to. And then now with my style, what I do is like, I have my team, based on what I'm doing, typically write like depending on how long or how in depth I'm going to be talking to the person. Like when you saw me interview Glenn Beck, all I had my lead producer do was, I said, basically go out and write an article on Glenn Beck, past, present, future, about what's out there today. That like, if they were writing an article about him for the cover of People magazine, like this would be the article. Like, and then I just read that article like the morning or 20 minutes before I go to do that interview, and then I'll mark it up and highlight it and make notes. And then now I have a framework to have a conversation from. So instead of making him say what's on the paper, I'm like, okay, I'm at least prepared for the conversation. It never gets stale, because if they're going somewhere that's not interesting to me or whatever, I've always got somewhere to go back to. But I also allow the opportunity for them to go, oh my gosh, I never told anyone about this before. And then their eyes light up and they go like, now we're getting somewhere, because this is now new territory. But I'm prepared to have the best conversation in the room that day. And I learned that from songwriting. Like, you don't write the song you intend to write. The goal is to write the best song that can happen in the room that day with the people you're collaborating with. And that's where the magic happens. And so that's how I prepare for my interviews now, like prepare to have the best conversation in the room that day. And that's, it just makes a world of difference.
That's absolute gold. That is so good. And I'm a lot like you, is that, I just want to go in and I just want to let it go where it wants to go. And we've been doing a lot more prep than we ever have. And kind of teeing up certain questions, certain things that we want to pull. The beauty of AI, the beauty of being able to, to get information quickly about the individual and pull social media, pull different things, throw it into chat, pull out. It's going to give me kind of a framework context, and it's really good. So I'm with you there. I love a little bit of context. I don't want to know way too much, but just enough to kind of let the conversation flow. And like you said, man, I love that. The best conversation possible that we can, have in the given time frame. Nick, you've had, I forget, I've played this game so many times, but it's like essentially you have one phone call, who you call in. And my answer every time is Nick Nanton. Like, there's nobody more connected on this planet than Nick Nanton. Like, listen, call Nick, he'll figure it out. He knows somebody that can fix whatever situation that we're in. And I remember when we were in New York, you shared the advice, and then I've noticed it. I've just paid attention. And I think it was the best advice that you had ever read or received on people. And I think it came from the Bezos letters, and it said, only hire people you admire. And that, like, I've shared that in all the masterminds. It's on my, like, the final question I always think about before starting to work with somebody is like, only hire people you admire. Do I admire the skill set of this individual? Do I know their gift? Do I admire that? And so I thank you for that nugget. Of all the people that you've had the opportunity kind of sitting down, nuggets and things that you kind of pull, are there 1, 2 things that just really have become core to you, resonated with you from the conversations that you've pulled, that has just been like, my goodness, that's absolute gold, and I'm going to weave that into my life and use that as a framework moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing is, I get some of those distilled moments with pretty much every, at least major interview. And sometimes it's by the way they move. And I mean, like, just who do they travel with? How do they schedule? So I get a lot of them. I get a ton of them. And that's why, like, I literally get the best teachers the best in the world at everything they do, like, is all I'm surrounded by. And so, the Bezos letters, it's funny. I've actually never in person met Steve Anderson, who wrote that, and his wife, Karen Anderson, who's actually helping me with my book right now. I'm meeting them for the first time. We're speaking at the same event on Friday. So I'm actually going to meet him in person. I've met him on Zoom, cool, but for the first time, so it should be fun. But, he did a really good job of distilling it. And I'll just say this, look, I move so much in, like, excitement and energy and people and just go that, like, I'm very good because of my ADHD at distilling things down in the moment, but I'm really bad at, like there's certain people who are like, well, let me tell you about this. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm really bad at that, but that's one of the reasons I wanted, like, I know I have an operating system that I use that I'm not even aware of. So I wanted to write this book to help me distill that down so I could actually intentionally share these messages with people. Yeah. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And I have plenty of them, but I'm just bad in the moment of going, oh, that's the one. But yes, I've learned so much from all these people. And I think one of the best lessons I've ever learned is certainly, the whole Dan Sullivan unique ability idea is just like, you weren't meant to do everything, and you were really not meant to do many things. And I would have if I were a control freak about everything around me, I would not be at all in the position I'm in, because, it really does take, hiring people. You admire people because they're really great at something. Well, if they're better than you, why don't you just let them do it? I mean, not that certain things you shouldn't try to get better at, but like, why not just get the best in the world? So someone asked me if I could help them with a video thing yesterday. Like my budget was like $7,500 or something. And I was like, I understand that's a lot of money, like $7,500. Like you do a lot with that, but like, I can't touch something like that for less than $75,000 because of how much I have to pay my people because they're that good. Like you could get a college kid to do this with little experience. My people, they're good at deep storytelling, which is a tough skill. So like, they're just expensive. So you really wouldn't want us to mess with that. We could do it great, but like, it's not worth what we would have to charge to do it. And so, just staying in your lane and being comfortable in that lane. I mean, always exploring and learning and growing. Great. Like you should do hard things like lift weights and run. And like, that's just good for you. Like, but the rest of it, like, man, lean into your gifts. And I would bet there's a lot of people listening to this right now or watching who have really never taken the time to, and I don't want to say this in like a woo-woo way, but it is a great way to like to honor their gifts. Like you were made, I'll use a quote from a great book I like. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, right? Like you were made for something special and you were made in a certain way. And the life circumstances you've been dealt were to prepare you to be the person you are. No one else has those, the toughest parts and the best parts. And your worst part's your worst part. You can't compare it to anybody else's. Your best part's your best part. You can't compare it to anybody else's, but they're your worst and your best, and you live between them. And so does everybody else, despite how much better or worse you think theirs were. And so like lean into what you have that nobody else has, your experiences, your gifts. And I can assure you, when you stop overlooking your gifts because they come so easy to you, that you'll find if you offer to help someone with something that you're really good at, they will gladly take your help and they will value you more and you'll have more fun. And then you can do the same thing with people like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't ever want to, I've never once written a documentary outline or a question list for a documentary, and I don't ever want to do it. And I would suck at it and I wouldn't do it. I would pretend that I was too busy to do it and all the things. And so like, let's just not play the game. Let me just get someone who wakes up every day and can't wait to put order into my chaos. And I let them. Then I go make it chaotic and then they fix it again.
That's so good. That's so absolutely it is. It's the letting go. And I mean, I think there's a level of maturity that comes with that. I think time and experience, just as, I was just kind of thinking through, my journey just on the real estate side over the last 21, 22 years, and just kind of reflecting back on, man, how fast could have grown, and letting go and just being honest. Hey, this is what I'm good at. Even more so, this is what I suck at. I have no business doing that. But I think sometimes early on, we're trying to prove and try to figure out our way. We say yes to things that we know we should say no to. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, it's just part of the journey.
It is. And, I still think it's a great book. I now have many more questions. I don't know, but I have many more questions about the individual. But Will Smith's autobiography was spectacularly good in a lot of ways. And I read it pre-slap. It hit different then. Just kidding. Anyway, but I really did read it then. But like, there's something he said that I found like so basically profound, which most profound things are simple to understand. But it was like, we're not born with any experience. The only experience you get is the experience you get, and then you die. Like, so you're not pre-programmed. Like you have some gifts, but like you don't have any experiences. So like you're good. I mean, it would be foolish. Jack Canfield said this way. He's like, the purpose of life is not to get from here to death without anything bad happening. He's like, what do you do? Oh, great. I made it. Well, so like, that's not the point, but we, hard things are hard and they're painful but we really learn probably the most in those things. So I think we've got, and again, I probably sound like a philosopher today, but like, cause I'm trying to remind myself, right? Like we're given those inflection points to really make us think, to really make us work, and to help us be better prepared for whatever is ahead. Because the more valuable you become to other people, the higher the stakes get. And you've either done the homework to play at that level, or you get knocked back down to the minor leagues and you can earn your way back up, or sometimes you never get a shot at it. But it's those harder moments, and leaning in and being honest about what you're good at, what you're not good at, is what It's what gets you there. You know, I had breakfast with a guy earlier today, like a coffee meeting. And I was like, hey, he makes movies and stuff. I'm like, what part of that do you love? He's like, oh, I used to be fascinated with like trying to get the right shot. I'm not anymore. I'm like, okay, don't ever do that again unless you need to eat. But like, don't chase gigs where you're like, he's like, oh, but it's like, you know, like we do evolve as we grow and we learn, and we start to learn the nuance of like, oh, I thought real estate was this, but real estate's really, as James Altucher would say, like hundreds of micro skills. And let me just choose maybe 3 to 5 of these micro skills and ideally work down to 1. That's all I need to do in these transactions. And I'm the best at it and the most valuable at it. And life grows, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Nick, brother, I appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for being able to carve out the time, jump in here. And I'm very grateful you put the philosopher hat on, because I think that's, you know, the mindset approach of it and the way we think about it is more important than sometimes the actual act. Being able to kind of see it, visualize it, know it's already going to happen, and then it just happens. So, brother, I appreciate you a ton.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me on, and anything I can do for you, call.
You got it, brother. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys next time. See ya.